Do you struggle with time management and beat yourself up for not being productive? Maybe you've tried all the hacks, you've read all the books, have used multiple planners, but nothing seems to work. What if I told you that the way we are often conditioned to think about time management and productivity is actually counterproductive? And what if I told you that productivity should not be the main goal of your time management? So in this video, I'm going to tell you why I think productivity should not be your main goal if you are trying to manage your time effectively. I'm going to start by telling you why I think a lot of us are striving so hard to be productive. Then I'm going to tell you why I think this obsession with productivity is actually counterproductive. And then finally, I'll share what I think should be the focus of your time management system. Okay, so let's get into the tips. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about is why we obsess about productivity. So I think a lot of us are obsessed with being productive because in our society and our cultural discourses, hard work and productivity are often glorified. A lot of our cultural discourses promote the idea that working hard means that we are somehow better people. Sociologist Max Weber is known for the concept of the Puritan work ethic, which describes how our cultural conversations and conditioning often align with the rise of modern capitalism, but our cultural conditioning often equates hard work with being ethical or moral. And this idea is that good people work hard, and because they work hard, they are rewarded and are able to acquire wealth and profit. Of course, this is not true for a variety of reasons. The obvious being that many of the people who have a lot of money or make a lot of money have a lot of money because they are exploiting labor and not because they work hard, but that's a whole other conversation. Another part of the Protestant work ethic is this notion that if we are not working hard or if we are resting, we are somehow immoral or bad people or we're lazy. So I think a lot of us want to work hard and we don't really question these sentiments because we don't want to be lazy or we don't want to think of ourselves as lazy. And avoiding being lazy is often this unstated goal that follows a lot of us and prevents us from really being able to relax, even when we do have a moment to rest. So we want to avoid wasting time. And when you think about it, there are so many interactions I've had, and there are so many adages that we are just taught that kind of reinforce this idea. I know for me, growing up Black and Southern in the 90s, my parents would often say things like, idle hands are the devil's workshop, and if you don't work, you don't eat. And the meanings we attach to not working and resting often equate to laziness. And it's this idea that if you're not working, then you're more susceptible to sinning or doing something wrong. And if you're lazy, then you are a bad person who is thus undeserving of food. You are meant to live in poverty, which I think is just a very problematic way of thinking about the world and people. Luckily, over the last couple years, we've seen a lot of people kind of push back on this toxic work culture or grind culture. People are tired, especially with events post-2020. You got Beyonce releasing songs about just quitting her job and folks talking about quiet quitting. So I think more and more people realize that the promotion of hard work and productivity serves capitalism, consumerism, neoliberalism, which is this idea that well-being is an individual responsibility rather than the responsibility of the welfare state. But this promotion of labor, grinding, and working all the time benefits employers and wealthy folks and people who are already in positions of power. And it promotes, I think, working class folks expending even more labor that can be exploited. So I think we often obsess over being productive. And as a result, productivity is often the unspoken goal of a lot of time management programs and systems because we live in a capitalist society that equates hard work and productivity with morality and the opposite of laziness. So I am a time management coach and I am in the last stages of testing and creating my program for moms. And I really want to push back on this idea that productivity should be our main focus when we are thinking about time management and even self-development more broadly. Now I want to talk about why I think this focus on productivity is actually counterproductive. productive, particularly when it comes to women and moms and people who are socialized as women and girls. So I think this focus on productivity is a counterproductive goal if you are trying to manage your time effectively. And I think this desire, this focus and obsession with productivity is counterproductive for a couple of reasons. One, people who are socialized as women and girls, we are socialized to devalue a lot of our labor and a lot of what we do. Angela Davis, renowned Black feminist scholar, in her book Women, Race, and Class, she talks about domestic labor, which is very common for women to carry out in the home, and she talks about it as invisible labor. And so this is wrapped up in this understanding that feminized labor is often devalued. Many of us will beat ourselves up for not being productive. I know for me, I would be discounting a lot of the labor that I've already done throughout the day because it was more domestic tasks or taking care of my kids and not work related. And so many of us are conditioned to see the work that we do at home or the caregiving work that we do as less valuable. And we often dismiss or discount the work that we do on a daily basis when productivity is the goal, because productivity is often attached to certain tasks, the required tasks. But because domestic labor is often feminized, many of us are encouraged to view that work as somehow less valuable. So it doesn't matter if you folded a load of laundry, got your kids out the house on time for school, if you didn't finish that task at work, if you didn't get to those emails, oftentimes many of us will still kind of consider that an unproductive day. So I'll give you an example. A couple weeks ago, my 6-year-old had a teacher work day, so she stayed home from school. And I had to split my time between working and watching her in the afternoon. So in the past, I might have been really overwhelmed and frustrated about everything I didn't get done. But at this point, I was able to give her some time to play her Nintendo Switch because I had to work. And I'm the type of parent who is pretty judicious with screen time, but I will give my kids an iPad if I have something specific that I need to do for a set amount of time. So I gave my 6-year-old her iPad and I was able to use that time to prepare for class. I'm a professor. So after that, we were able to sit on the balcony together. She blew bubbles and told me about school. And if I'm conscious of all of the labor that I do, keeping in mind that domestic labor and child rearing is in fact labor, and then I am able to see that I have actually been productive. But that takes time. That takes really training yourself to realize that you are contributing, even if it's not in this very capitalist, recognized way because it's attached to work. And it is so much easier to just go ahead and discount your domestic labor and taking care of your kids. But that's one of the reasons why I say that this focus on productivity is often counterproductive, because we are often discounting a lot of the labor that we do as women and people socialize as women and girls. We often discount a lot of the work that we do because it's not necessarily considered to be the labor that actually counts. Another reason why I think focusing on productivity is counterproductive is because oftentimes it can lead to burnout, which means people are getting less joy out of life. You know, you are in this mode of heading quickly toward burnout when you feel like you are on autopilot and you are just chasing productivity for productivity's sake. You don't feel pulled in the direction of your work or motivated. I used to say it felt like I was on a hamster wheel when I was in grad school, just kind of moving from task to task with little direction. Although I did have this laser focus on productivity, and it makes you feel like nothing you accomplish is good enough. It's not a healthy mindset. You'll be constantly grinding, working, and stressing if you are focusing on productivity. You will never be satisfied with what you do. And that's one of the biggest reasons why I think this emphasis and this obsession with productivity can actually be counterproductive, because what you do is never going to be good enough if you're constantly focused on producing, just being productive, just being productive, just being productive for productivity's sake. So instead of focusing on productivity, I think the goal of any time management system should be to create more time to care for yourself and to create more time for things that bring you joy, support your purpose in areas where you find meaning, okay? I think these should be the focus of any good time management program. For me, I'm a professor and a scholar. I want to be productive with my research because I know my work about Black women's health and Black women's well-being on social media is an important part of my purpose. That makes me want to do the research, write these articles, and go to conferences. It's a tremendous privilege and a dream come true to have a job that I love as a tenure track professor. And if you don't love your job, or if you don't find purpose in your job, maybe your time management is focused on alleviating your stress while you're at work and creating time to research and work on an exit strategy. I also want to be productive with my day job because I want to also have time for my creative projects and making content for Her Guided Evolution. Most importantly, being productive with work. I'm productive with work because I have to. So I can have more time with my kids, more time with my husband, more time for FaceTime calls with my parents and other connections. And I think it's important to recognize that work and productivity are a means to an end because we have bills to pay. We live in a capitalist society, but it's also up to us to take ownership of our time whenever possible in order to create space for more joy, more meaning, and more purpose. So to sum up, I think our culture normalizes overworking and striving to be productive. And I think focusing on productivity is counterproductive because many of us discount the domestic labor and child rearing tasks that are unrelated to our day jobs. And this, I think, kills our confidence. Two, I think focusing on productivity can leave you feeling burnout. You'll never feel satisfied or good enough if productivity is the end goal. We shouldn't just be aiming for productivity's sake. Instead of focusing on productivity, ask yourself how you can create more time and space for care, joy, meaning, and purpose in your life. So, I want to offer you and encourage you to recognize the labor that you already do on a daily basis that may not be related to work in your career, but it's still important. And if you are focusing on being productive, you're probably getting less meaning, joy, and pleasure out of life. And you're likely not focusing on taking the best care of yourself. So I want to encourage you to not focus on productivity, instead focus on creating more joy. So if you want to learn more about me and my approach to time management and self-development, go ahead and watch this next video where I'll tell you about the time management mistakes that I made as a multi-passionate married mom and grad student. All right, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.